everyone. I just thought I'd hop on here today. I wanted to just talk a little bit about sketchbooks. I was going through some of my different piles of things in my closet, and I came up with a bunch of these moleskins sketchbooks, and I started going through them, and I thought, oh, there's just a lot to learn about, you know, just the creative flow and how we, you know, just, I don't know, for me, the insistence of creativity is always there, and that I've just always had in my mind. I've been making art since, you know, oh gosh, for about 30 years now. Graduated from Mass College of Art and Design in 1988, and I was making art well before then. But it's always everywhere. Like, you know, I have sketchbooks, I have, you know, piles of papers and piles of paintings. And so I just wanted to just talk about, you know, this desire and drive to create, and dive into a couple of these kind of little tucked away things called sketchbooks that are often a big part of our lives as artists, and sometimes we share them and sometimes we don't. But I thought today I would do a couple of little sketchbook tours and talk about just ways that you can keep your practice going. And it's, for me, it's through simplicity. So let me just start with this little moleskin. This is a little moleskin watercolor book. I started this in 2017. And it was just little watercolor and ink, filling 2-page spreads, adding things, not really sure what I was doing. But boy, oh boy, once we go through into the later ones, you're going to see the connection probably between some of these marks and some of the things that are just, you know, driving things of forces and ideas that have just kept persisting in the work that I've been doing. So these are just watercolors. This is Posca markers. I was just discovering the Posca markers, working with just shapes and filling the pages, colors, you know, making marks and then putting things on top of them and making things kind of collide, and just creating spaces that are interesting. Here's another one where I just am picking some color palettes and just working through. Okay, and then I think here, I think I got a little tired of the color, and I thought, oh, you know, what about just plain black and white? And boy, oh boy, this kind of turned the corner for me. I would put all the, you know, these shapes down, but then it was also about what was happening in the negative space. So I would go in and, you know, fill in the negative space. I particularly like this one. I think it would make a great pattern, maybe some fabric or something. And I picked up some more, I think these are another kind of marker that I was playing with. Different markers and ink. There seems to be this insistence of trying to get things that don't go together to go together somehow. And I'm back to the black and white. And then again, stripes and patterns. Now these, you know, I think 2017, I don't have like, I never go in them every day. I think I kind of, you know, carry them around with me. How do I use them? Sometimes I'm sitting in front of the TV with my family. You know, I pull out, have my little sketchbook, and it's just a way to mark time, really. Waiting when my kids were younger, it would be some place that I would be waiting at the doctor's office or the dentist's office, or waiting to pick them up from camp or something like that. And I would have all these little things with me to doodle and keep my hand moving, my hand going, my hand, you know, my brain kind of problem solving, really, and thinking about making all the time. And this was a way to do it, you know, just an easy thing that you could reach for. And simple materials, simple tools, just fill the page and turn the page and then just start again. Fill the page, turn, it's just no judgment, just let it go. Okay, that's what it was. And it's gonna be hidden in this book. It's closed, you don't have to share it with anybody except I'm sharing it with you. So that was one, that was 2017. So simple materials, simple moleskin sketchbook, easy peasy. And then just when it's full, put it away. I just put it away. I don't judge it. I don't put it away and don't even think about it really again until I find it and go, oh, that was fun. And then this one I think started in 2018. Kind of getting a little bit more complex with the patterns. Exploring layers more. So putting down something and then building things on top of it rather than in between. And I think this is when the flowers started for me. I started doing a lot of floral things, and I started with just drawing the flowers and then just filling the negative space with watercolor. I hadn't had done a lot of watercolor florals at that point. And then I just keep going. I didn't really have any idea of, I just knew that nature was speaking to me. I think I was thinking again of pattern and nature and texture. I just kept going. Simple circles. Again, pattern, line work. Really just beginning to explore watercolor here, I think. Didn't have a lot of confidence in it, but it was okay because I was just kind of learning how to play with the material. And a sketchbook is a safe place to do that, I think. At least it was for me. And then these are just exercises of trying to control the negative space, tight spaces, color, weaving things together here. And then creating some patterns here with florals, leaves, just simple leaf shapes, more pattern work, just negative shapes, layers, some more layers. So something very light and then building over that so that there's some density. There's another, but keep going back and forth. I think when I see these, I think, oh, I'm just trying to work something out. I'm not sure what it is. And then this is the start of some, flowers. Repetition, really probably thinking about just things moving in space a little bit. And just trying to get an understanding of what watercolor can do. I love this paper. This paper, I have to say, is delicious for watercolor. Just playful. There's a lot of, I love those little bleeds and backgrounds and just the way that the watercolor, look at this. It's kind of like sometimes watercolor just paints itself and you can just really, you just have to step back and let it do its thing. And here, this is very similar to the one earlier where I'm just painting the negative space. This feels more confident here than that one. And so I guess I say that because I think the more you do things, the more you work on it, the more you'll build your skills and you'll build a sure hand. This feels a little bit more confident. It's another pattern. And these are, even though these are small books, these patterns feel like they could be really big. And in fact, they have gotten really big in some of my newest work. Some of these things have shown themselves back again. These circles I've worked with again, and I've worked with, obviously, flowers. And here's some more florals. And then just shape and color. So here, just working with very cool color. Leaning cooler, greens and yellows and blues. monotones, just blue. This looks like an ultramarine blue pattern. Simple flowers. More flowers. You know, I gotta say, I think I'm making all these up as I go along. I'm not looking at any references. I'm just kind of playing with imagination and putting them together as I go along. And then this flower, this background's a little more complicated than the other one with multiple colors in the background. And it ends here. Okay, so that's 2018. And this goes to 2019. This book gets a little bit bigger. I think my favorite size is this size. And I made a decision with this book that I would just go with one thing. I was just going to go with all black and white. I think that's where I made that decision. Yeah, this is an all black and white. So I thought, you know what, wouldn't it be cool if I just kept it to simple tools and materials and find out what I could do in terms of mark making. So I'll flip through this, and then I'm going to take you through some of what those tools and materials were and show you how you can do it too. So what I would start to do is think, how can I fill the page with pattern and shape? So the big shapes happen first, and then the smaller shapes I would gradually fill in with pattern, and then just keep drawing and drawing until the whole space was filled in. And sometimes more successfully than others, but just really about pattern and texture, repetition, filling in, using this book to mark time. Really, it's, you know, literally you can just see that minute by minute, you know, the pages would be filled in and time would go by, and then I'd flip the page and I'd start again. And then on these I would start with like big wide marks and then fill in, think a wide, like, you know, use something with a wide tip for these marks, fill in the black shapes, and then the line work in between. And then some of these were like grids, swirls, just blobs, circles, these kind of grids. So this one, I think I just was using all these different shapes and keeping the sort of negative shape around it consistent. There's another one down the way where I also fill in these negative spaces with marks. Now this one is all consistent. You can see that the weight of this brush that I'm using is a heavy weight, so that it's a much denser pattern. There's a variety in the marks in these pages. Just simple circles or wheels. They remind me of quilts in some way, like, you know, this sort of patchwork idea of things that don't go together and belong together anyway because you say they do. And this feels like has a little bit of a map quality to it. A lot of movement. This is simple, feels also like landscapey a little bit. This one's a lot more irregular shapes. And then I'm just going to pop over here. This one is 2019 to 2020. I think I also included some text in here for this first page. And then I think I started adding much harder lines to this one. More complex dots and shapes and different textures, just really exploring what marks the pen could make. These are more sort of almost like, again, quilt-like. They remind me of some sort of quilt. And I used to quilt a little bit when my kids were younger. Everybody had a quilt. Mom loved to make quilts. And another one with just shapes. So you can see how addictive this can be and enjoyable, that you can just keep filling the books with different marks and shapes and patterns and repetition, and constantly entertain yourself with just your pen and paper. It's endless, endless variety of things that your brain can come up with, and you really can stretch your imagination and strengthen your hand and get really confident about your ideas, and in a safe way, in a safe space that's yours. Okay, so here's the one where I put these shapes together and then fill them in. This was a very complex, feels like a really complex pattern. Okay, so that's the end. That's, and I stop along the way. I don't often, sometimes I don't fill all the pages. I go back, I go forth. So this is one that kind of stopped where it is. I didn't finish this, so I thought I could just take you along a little journey and show you what to do if you ever want to do this. I have here some ideas about pens. You can use, there's so many different pens options. You could use a Posca pen, which is, this is that 3M Posca pen. You can use, this is that's the silver one. You can use this, my favorite I think is this Pigma Graphic. This is the Graphic 1, Pigma Graphic 1. Graphic 1 Pigma. There's of course the good old Sharpie, which is here. This is a fine point. Sharpie fine point, you could use that. So it's not going to give you the kind of variety of marks that some of these other ones. This is a Pentel brush pen. That's this here. This one's almost dried up, but what's cool about this is that you can, this has an inkwell here, which is refillable. You get that at any art supply store. And it will serve you well in terms of, just easy access to a brush and a lot of ink in this. I mean, these last a pretty long time. The refills are easy to come by. Tombow, that's this, which I love. It's this dual marker. There's one end here, like this, and then there's the brush end like that. And you could fill these big shapes. You could see how the big shapes could be filled in with something like that. And what else do I have? This is probably my all-time favorite. This one's all dried up and I don't have another one. The Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen here. Big brush. It's a big fat nib. And normally it's pointed. So you can get a lot of great marks from that. So that's a top rated pen for me. I go through a lot of those. What else did I have? I did the Graphic 1. We have, the Stattlers are good pens too. Stattler, that's a 5. There's a 7. The 7's wider than the 5. So the lines are going to be slightly, this is the 7. This is the This is 0.7. This is the 0.5. It's a slightly thinner line there. And I think that's kind of it. Pretty much the basics. And then there's the Faber-Castell. This is a small one. Very fine line here. Very thin line. Oh, actually it's all dried up, so I can't show you. All right, let me just, I want to just hop back to this page and show you how I might go about just working on something like this. I would just pick an area. Like I would draw this whole, I drew these lines in as big shapes, and then I would work just on one area by just filling it in with repetition. So these are just little lines, simple line work. And keep filling it in. Keep filling it in. And then make some decisions. Maybe you'd start down here if you got bored. Just keep going and create the pattern one stroke, one line at a time. That. And you can see how as I progress, the space gets more and more filled in. And then maybe I will start over here. There's no right or really wrong way. You just kind of do it as your instinct tells you to, as you feel, as you're going along. And then you can even, you could use the Posca to kind of create, maybe you'd want, no, this is the wrong one. Let's see, this one. Maybe we can make some of the lines thicker in places. Here and here, like there. And maybe we'd fill in a shape here. Maybe we'll fill that in. Dark. So you can create dark patterns all throughout the design, throughout the page. That always helps the eye. I think the darker shapes, you know, your eye sees the value first. And I think that that's one of the things that's enjoyable about this, is that you're creating these incredibly interesting patterns and textures with value and simplicity and pattern and texture. So there's one other way. And then maybe I would do this line over here. So that's kind of how I would keep going with this. Maybe I'll add another shape over here. And that's kind of it. I would just keep going, and you'll see that you continue to just fill it in and have a way to constantly have something that you're working on that's relaxing and enjoyable and fun to do. You can do it any way that you want. There's no right or wrong way, and you can really enjoy yourself in the process. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. Talk to you soon. Bye.